So welcome along to this is the last Wednesday night of the 21-day meditation challenge. So what we're going to be doing tonight is myself and Jyotika is first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit, and then we'll do some meditation. We'll do the Metta Bhavana tonight, and then we'll have breakout rooms to talk about our practice. After which we'll have a break in minutes. And then when we come back, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions. So it'll be an interactive session of questions and answers. And we'll finish with some meditation, a short period of meditation. So that's basically the plan for this evening. And what I wanted to do to start with, actually, is just talk for a little while. And I wanted to pick up on some of the things that Jnanadhara was talking about on Monday night and what bearing that might have on our meditation practice, particularly our practice of the Metta Bhavana. So what Jnanadhara was talking about was the perspective of the mind, this perspective of consciousness that the Yogacara takes. So the Yogacara is a particular Buddhist practice and thought that emerged something around about 500 years after the Buddha. So what it talks about is different kind of levels or different layers or different aspects of mind. So first of all, I'm going to recapitulate everything that Jnanadhara said. But just to say, that there are different, according to this school, there's different layers of the mind. There's different kind of levels or different aspects. And these meditators, these Yogacharans, discovered that through their practice. So it's a kind of a way of understanding what's going on when we meditate. And it helps us to understand some of the things about Dharma practice, like the way that even though there's no fixed self in Buddhism, there's no sense of a fixed entity that change happens to. Nevertheless, when we act in a certain way, we are altered by that. There's a sense that those actions have an effect. They kind of perfume our mind. They change the way that our consciousness is structured, the way that we perceive things. And in particular, in the Yogacara, there's, like I said, these three levels. The first of these levels pertains to the six sense consciousnesses. So this is eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and also the mind. So there's that consciousness in the sense of an awareness of an object. Now, your eye consciousness is functioning. It's perceiving, or me and the other people in the class. You're looking at your screen. You're probably looking at other things maybe around the room. And your ear consciousness is functioning, hearing what I'm saying. And also your mind consciousness is functioning. So your mind, in this sense, is like a sense organ. So you might be perceiving images and ideas, thoughts that might not be related to experiencing through your eye and through your ear and through your other senses as well. So also I'm noticing for myself, I've just had my dinner, so my tongue consciousness is also present. I can taste the sort of the echo of the pasta that I had for dinner. So that's the sort of first level of mind. And then there's this very, very deep level, which is called the alaya. So alaya means storehouse. And this is where, in a way, all the actions that we perform are, as it were, stored, and they're stored like seeds. So that the storehouse consciousness is like the repository of what we do, what we say, what we think, and what we do with our body. So deeds of body, speech, and mind, as it were, stored in the alaya consciousness, the storehouse consciousness. And that's a very deep and a very difficult thing to try and understand. But it does explain this, how our actions have consequences. It's as if they're stored in some way, in our being in some way. There's this other sort of consciousness, which, as it were, is intermediate between sense consciousnesses and the alaya. And it's called the Klisto Mano Vijnana, or just simply the manas. And that means something like the defiled or the afflicted mind consciousness. And it's afflicted because what happens is in this kind of consciousness, the split happens between some things belonging to outside and some things belonging to inside. So the idea of us as a fixed entity in relation to a world that's fixed arises. And it's a very, very deep habit, if you like, to see things in this way, to perceive things in this way, to have a sense that what we're experiencing through our senses in some way kind of belongs to us, and what we perceive belongs outside of us. So we have this split, and yeah, the stronger we're in a negative mental state, we'll experience that split more acutely. And if we're in a more positive mental state, a more skillful mental state, that split will be um, but what's really interesting about the Yogacara is they just accept, as it were, as a starting point, the fact that we experience our lives in this kind of split way because of this deep seated affliction, this deep seated way of perceiving everything in terms of self and other. So rather than trying to kind of fight that, what we can do is we can, as it were, kind of use that fact as a way of developing. So we're just going to accept the fact that for the moment, we're going to see things in terms of us being separate from the world, and start from that basis and develop from there. So now, he also analysed the Klistomana Vijnana, the defiled mind consciousness, in a little bit more detail. And he said how it's got these four kleshas, these four afflictions that kind of express what's going on, that manifest what's going on in the Klistomana Vijnana. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but one of them I wanted to focus on, and that's what's called Atma Sneha. So Atma means self, and Sneha means something like love or even infatuation. So there's this really deep infatuation with ourself that happens at quite a deep level of our being, of our mind. We're just kind of in love with ourselves. So that's just going to weigh what we come to life with. There's no point in feeling bad about it. It's just there. So rather than feeling bad about that, what we're going to do, and this is what we do in the Metta Bhavana, is we just start by acknowledging, start by feeling that sense of self-cherishing. We're just really, really important to ourselves. We just really, really care about ourselves really, really deeply. So again, so rather than thinking that that's a bad thing, we just accept, well, that's the way, that's for the moment, that's the way we see things. So let's just really feel that. Let's just really acknowledge that. And in a way, that's what we're doing in the Metta Bhavana when we either say or we imagine, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be free from suffering, and so on. We're kind of giving voice to that self-cherishing, that self-infatuation. We're just saying, may that sort of in a way come to fulfillment. In a way, it can't at its own level, but just for the moment, we're just going to accept that that's where we are. And then something that's really profound, and this is where the Metta Bhavana really comes into its own. What we do is we acknowledge and reflect on the fact that other people also have that. So we're infatuated with ourselves. We think we're the center of the universe, and other people also feel like that. And then a shift begins to take place. A shift begins to take place. So rather than just orientating towards ourself, rather than just being focused on ourself, through awareness of the fact that other people also have that self-cherishing, we begin to include them in what we care about, what we think is important. So in that way, we begin to attenuate the sense of self and other as being a fixed thing. It begins to soften. So it's as if we're using the actual bias of our mind to overcome the bias of our mind incrementally and progressively. So that's what we do particularly when we do all stages of the practice actually. So we try and connect with that for ourselves. Just the fact that we really care about ourselves, and that's the way it is. We don't even need to evaluate it as being good or bad. We can just accept, well, that's the way it is right now. And then we include other people in that. That's the really important, that's the really crucial thing. And through that, we develop a kind of solidarity, a kind of a fellow feeling with others. In a way, it's a kind of surest basis because it's actually based on something that's already happening. We don't have to invent something. We're just trying to connect with something. How we do that is another matter. We can do that imaginatively. We can do that through words. We can do that through images. We can do that in a way, in a kind of embodied, kind of somatic way, through just a sense of ourself as a physical entity that occupies space and so on. So in that kind of way, we can use the kinds of ideas that Jnanadhara was talking about on Monday night. We can use the insights of the Yogacara to help us develop in the Metta Bhavana. And I think the really crucial thing is, to not feel bad about the fact that we're self-centered, to take that as a starting point and see if we can move beyond it. There's one other thing I wanted to pick up on what Jnanadhara was saying, and that is that he was talking about this deeper aspect of the mind that sort of lies. I mean, it's tempting to kind of use a spatial metaphor, but it sort of lies at the root of consciousness, the alaya, and how he sort of spoke about this emergence of this kind of consciousness that breaks through our ordinary kind of mind. He was describing that in terms of looking at art and the sort of change in perception that can take place through looking at art, and how he was talking about seeing things as light. And again, we can enter into that kind of consciousness through Metta Bhavana. Sometimes said that what Metta Bhavana does is it enables us to see everything as beautiful. And that's particularly the case in the fifth stage. So in a way, what's happening here in the fifth stage is we start kind of incrementally. We start with the people that we've been meditating on, and we try and develop metta for each of them, ourself, the good friend, the neutral person, the difficult person. And then we include more and more people in our awareness, in our metta, don't we? We might think of people that we are associated with during the course of our day, or our friends or our family, and we just allow more and more people to kind of gather, in our awareness. And hopefully there's a sense of kind of solidarity, a fellow feeling that emerges from that. And I think there's a certain point where what we can do is, rather than thinking in terms of developing metta, we can think in terms, or we can approach the practice in terms of actually just letting go into metta. So accepting, acknowledging that we are connected, that there is solidarity between the fact of our life and the fact of other people's lives. That's just a fact. We're all interconnected. We're all part of the same world. We're all alive, and we can begin to just let go into that. So I think it can be a quite helpful approach to the last practice of just getting to the point where we're not trying to do anything anymore. We're not exercising our will anymore. In a way, we're just allowing that momentum of metta that was set up to continue without our consciously trying to make anything happen. So again, images can be quite helpful here. So often the way metta is talked about is just a kind of a radiation. It's sometimes expressed in terms of like a light radiating from the heart. We can even let go of a sense of it radiating from somewhere, and we can just have a sense of being in light. So again, we're trying to move from the sense of us being a center to there being, in a way, no center. So that's just a way of approaching the fifth stage. So hopefully that makes some sense to you. There'll be an opportunity to ask questions later, an opportunity to discuss the practice of get into a meditation posture that you're comfortable in, and I'll lead us through the Metta Bhavana, bearing in mind the kind of things I've been talking about for the last few minutes. So beginning by simply recalling the fact that what we're doing when we meditate is expressing the care that we have for ourselves. We're expressing the fact that we want to be well and happy, that we want to be free from affliction, and that we want to grow. So we're already doing something which is expressing the care that we have for ourselves. And allowing that care to emerge as a natural curiosity about what's going on at the minute, about what's actually coming to us through our senses. So we have ourself, an experience of ourself as existing in a world. And we have that awareness of us through our senses. So beginning by just noticing what we hear. Letting go of concern with what we're hearing and just having a sense of sound in and of itself. Notice the way that sound comes from somewhere. We have an experience of it and located in space, of having direction and location. And even though our eyes might be closed, there'll still be a sense of the visual field, albeit relatively dark. And then connecting with the kind of fleshy aspect of our being through the body sense. Our skin covers our body in contact with all kinds of different feeling the feet and the legs and the buttocks wrapped up in clothing. The genital area and the belly. The pressure of your belt or waistband against your belly. The touch of your clothing against the skin of your chest and your shoulders and your back. the arms and the hands. So much sensation in the hands. Again, tuning into those fleshy senses, the mouth, the tongue. So taste and the sense of wetness in the mouth. Odors maybe you can experience through the nose. And the sense of body is not just skin, it's also what happens inside. The muscles, bones, the organs. Particularly some of those muscles that tend to tense up to soften as we bring awareness to them. So particularly the forehead and the eyes, the jaw. And the shoulders. The belly. Aware of our body is not just sensation, but energy. To the strange fact that there's an aspect of our experience that's going on all the time that doesn't necessarily bear any relation to our physical senses. So the mind produces its own images, thoughts, emotions, memories, images, words, phrases. So that's building up, it's emerging all on its own, so to speak. Sometimes what we experience through our senses, what we experience through our mind, is painful, maybe acutely painful. Maybe there's pain right now. And sometimes it's pleasurable, maybe ecstatically pleasurable, maybe right now. And somewhere deep within us is a longing, a passionate desire for pleasure, and recoiling from pain. even a longing for freedom. We really care about that. We really care about ourselves. And one simple way to connect with that is just to call ourselves by our name in a kindly kind of way. And we can give expression to that longing, that desire, that self-love by saying a phrase. Or by conjuring an image, maybe an image in our heart. So metta for ourselves. So now I'm bringing to mind a friend. So bringing them to mind in whatever way feels natural to you. It might be as simple as just saying your friend's name. So they too feel very, very deeply caring for themselves. All that they do in their life is as an expression of that, in the same way that all that we do in our life is an expression of our care for ourselves. They like pleasure, hate pain. They long for happiness, and they want to move towards it. They want to grow. So it's as if we're including our friend in the care that we have for ourselves. So metta for our friend. And just letting go of that person, letting them move into the background, and just having an open sense of what's there, what our mind is like. And then bringing to mind a neutral person. Remembering that that person's experience of life, of pleasure and of pain, of hope, of disappointment, and so on, is as vivid to them as our experience of those things is to us. the care that we have for ourself is the same as the care that they have for their self. Just allowing metta to flow from that reflection. And again, allowing the neutral person just to move into the background and just notice how your mind is. You don't have to be anywhere special, you can just be where you are. So where's that? Having a sense of the belly, the heart. And then bring to mind someone that you find difficult. And remembering that, like you and your friend and the neutral person, they deeply care for themselves. They cherish themselves. It really matters to them whether they experience pleasure or pain. Not fussing about details, just reflect the mental character of being a living being, being a human being. So metta for the difficult person. And then bringing each of the four people to mind, as it were at the same time, reflecting that that desire for well-being is equal in each. Each person is the center of their world. Each person is as alive as each other person. The love that they have for themselves is the love that we have for ourselves. And then allowing more people to come into your awareness. So you're surrounded, you're encompassed by living beings, all expressing themselves, all doing the things that they do to fulfill that desire for well-being, happiness, and freedom. In all directions. So we have this deep solidarity with their life. They have a deep solidarity with our life. That's just there. So letting go of trying to do anything and just sit in that, be with that. So we're going to break into discussion groups now, or breakout rooms. So yeah, you might like just to start by talking about how you found the meditation we just did now, about how you found the meditation during the course of the week, and it might also be good to start thinking about where you want to go with it after this meditation challenge is finished. So we're coming to the last few days of it, and how are you going to keep the momentum that you've developed so far? That might be a good question. But I'm sure there'll be loads to talk about. So, Vajeshwar, do you want to set those going now? Maybe for, I don't know, 18 minutes?
18 minutes, and it's groups of 4 on the whole.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Vajeshwar.
Just give me 1 sec.
Okay, so we'll gather back. And we have no questions yet. I have a question. That's great. So yeah, if you do have questions about Jnanadhara's talk, your meditation in general, Jnanavach's talk, anything really, just feel free to put it down, and myself and Jnanadhara will do our best to answer them, or Vajeshwara who wants to chip in. Okay, so we'll start with Phil's then. Thanks, Phil. I have a question about how to keep momentum. I've been starting most days with meditation for about 6 months, but at times I've gotten stuck. The teachings in the last 3 weeks have been very helpful. And I think if I am to keep a practice as a permanent part of my life and keep developing, then I'd need to stay plugged in, if that makes sense, or else things might become stagnant. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Phil. If you're happy to talk, Phil, I might just ask, when you say you've gotten stuck, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, funnily enough, actually, Jyotika, and thank you very much. Last week I mentioned I was having not great meditations, and you made a point to me that a lot of what's happening is for what is happening when you're not meditating. And when we were in our group today, I was talking about, in the past few days, I've really noticed that. So when I talk about getting stuck, it's having those thoughts that I had last week, let's say, and not necessarily having someone who knows what I'm talking about to tell me, not necessarily to cop on, but if you know what I mean, to kind of steer me back so that I don't get disheartened and maybe go, oh, this isn't happening, and so on. So that's kind of what I meant by stuck. It happened to me before Christmas, and the Who Hates the Met Bhavna course turned up almost exactly at the right time. I was very close to giving everything up, and it saved it, So that's kind of what I mean.
Okay. It sounds like it's community and staying in touch with people. Would that be about right?
Yeah, I think even like the breakout discussions that we've had in this couple of weeks and at the Meta Bhavna course, and there are people here who I met on that. Yeah, it was I think almost as important as the teaching in some ways, in a different way, but equally as important, perhaps. Other people who are struggling with their meditation, and you just realize, hold on, that's okay. Don't give up.
Yeah, it said the essential Buddhist act is what's called to go for refuge to the 3 jewels, and one of the jewels is the Sangha jewels, so the community of fellow practitioners, and that's broken up into a community of beings who have achieved enlightenment, but then also are just our fellow travelers, those of us who are on the path and having our good days and having our bad days. but it's one of the central jewels. So community and friendship is just so important in the Buddha Dharma, and it's one of the reasons is for this very thing that you're talking about, Phil. That we all get disheartened and at times, and it's so helpful just to have a friend to share that with, who's also has the same aspiration and same ideals as you do, and just gives you perspective and allows you to share what's going on. So it's really vital in Buddhism and spiritual practice. So it's lockdown is lockdown, and we don't know how long it's going to go on for. But the Dublin Buddhist Centre is going to continue providing courses and opportunities for people to meet and gather and communicate and share. So we are going to be here, and if you feel like giving up, reach out, make connection with somebody, people, and just share what's going on. Yeah. Okay, great. Sam, Jnanadhara, is there anything else there, or shall we move on?
Yeah, let's just move on. I completely agree. Yeah.
Okay. In our group, there was common appreciation for Jnanavaccha's style of teaching this week regarding wisdom in meditation. Going forward, do you have any advice on how to integrate this wisdom into our practice? And furthermore, how to keep a degree of novelty or fluidity beyond alternating between mindfulness and breathing and metta bhavana? Well, the last question, the last part of that question, I think is quite easy. I don't think you have to worry about novelty or fluidity. If you're engaging with the practice, they will provide all the novelty you're going to need. You just need to really engage with the practice, surrender to the practice. So, mindfulness, fully experienced, will take you places you have never been before. And the metta bhavana it's a universal force, and again will take you to places you've never been before. So that's how I would answer that last one. And the first part, there was a common appreciation for Jnanavaccha's style of teaching. Yeah, I just on that, a thing that really impresses me about Jnanavaccha is that he can communicate quite subtle and sophisticated philosophical ideas in a way that is very relatable, as Anna was saying in our group, because he tells stories either from his life or from the tradition, but he's a storyteller, and it seems quite simple. I mean, I find out I get very absorbed when I'm listening to him, but it seems quite simple, but it's a real skill that he has, and Maitreya Bandit does the same thing. But anyway, so I was appreciating his style. But the question then is, going forward, do you have any advice on how to integrate this wisdom into our practice? Read the Dharma, reflect on it, do ritual and devotion if you're feeling that way inclined, if that's something that speaks to you, deepen friendships with other practitioners. All of those things bring more awareness to your practice of ethics in your everyday life. Meditate regularly, build momentum so that you deepen your practice, and all of those things will help to integrate wisdom into your practice. Absolutely, no doubt about it. Jnanadhara?
Yeah, I was just thinking. One thing is just if something hits you, like if Jnanavaccha or somebody else says something, or if something just emerges in your meditation, a different way of looking at things, or a different perspective that feels truer and that feels liberating or freeing, is just to reflect on it. Just to actually turn it over in your mind and try and understand it more deeply. So sometimes insights just emerge. It's like, oh, I hadn't thought of it like that. Oh yeah, God, it's kind of a bit different to the way I thought it was. Well, just to kind of notice that that's happened, and then actively turn it over in your mind. Try and reflect on what the implications of it might be. Try and almost kind of notice when it's not there anymore, that you notice that you've kind of lost it, and remember, maybe you might even remember what it was that you thought that helped you to get into that kind of mode. I mean, that's what I find is like that Yogacara way of looking at things that Jnanadhara introduced on Monday. I find that really, really interesting, but I have to kind of get myself into it. I have to kind of remember what the teachings are and try and imagine my way into it, and then it starts to influence me. But it takes a bit of effort to kind of refresh that perspective. It's a bit like putting a pair of spectacles on, you know, that sharpen up your vision actually. So that when I read that question, that's what occurred to me. Yeah.
Great. Okay, thanks. We'll move on. Mairead, can I ask a question about images popping up during metta bhavana or mindfulness breathing meditation? A scary image popped up for me during the week. So I'm sorry to hear that, Mairead. I'm not entirely sure what the question is about it. I invite you to talk if you're happy to. Is it that you're worried that they'll happen again, that they shouldn't be happening, what to do about them if they do happen? Are you happy to say a little bit more?
Yeah, sorry. I think my connection might be a little bit unstable, so apologies if I get cut off here. Can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, no, it was just during the Metta Bhavana, and it was during the part about a difficult person. And it was such a vivid image. It was like a furry animal, okay? And like it was furry animal, but on the face of it, it was like this big red face. It was like the face of a demon on a furry animal. And it was so vivid that it just took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting it, I suppose. So I sort of got taken aback, but I sat with it and kind of continued on. And then we moved on to the next part of it. And I was kind of okay after that. So I suppose from a perspective of after, it didn't really affect me hugely afterwards. It just got me, I suppose, thinking about maybe that's how I see this person. You know, maybe I have more fear of them rather than difficulty with them, you know. And it's just, I suppose, how do I move on from that if it does happen again? It's not that I'm scared of it. It was just surprising. I didn't expect it to happen, and I'm just wondering if this has happened to you guys, or is it something that can happen. I'm relatively new to this, so that's why I'm just, I suppose, reaching out, if you know.
Yeah, great. It's a great question, and thanks so much for sharing it. Yeah. This thing can happen. Yes, there's nothing abnormal in it at all. Chances are that your mind does think imagistically quite a bit. Would that be right to say, or would you have a sense of that yet? These things can
Yeah, it does
start to
sound
show
weird.
themselves more clearly when we begin to meditate. So it sounds like that for some people, they think, if you like, or they process through concepts. They just work easily that way. Some people, it can be a felt sense in the body. They can be quite strongly connected to emotions in the heart area or the belly, the guts. Some people, it can be images, visual images. And I'd be quite like that, where I would get a visual image and that's it. If I might be grappling with something and a visual image comes to me, and it it distills and contains everything I needed to understand about this dynamic or this situation. So it just sounds like that's what's going on for you. So on that level, I really wouldn't worry about it. Chances are it is telling you something about your relationship with this person. You said you weren't scared. So, that's fine. That's good. If it happens again, just see what your response is. If it keeps throwing you or it starts to make you scared, then maybe it would be better not to put that person in the stage for a while. Maybe there's just too much intensity in your relationship with that person. And it's advised that, especially with the fourth stage, the person we're finding difficult in the Metta Bhavana, we start off slowly and we just get used to the practice. But as of now, I wouldn't be too concerned, Mairead, but see how you go.
Great. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I add something?
Of course you can. Just jump straight in.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking. I mean, one of the things I think with the Metta Bhavana is that what happens when you do it is it creates a space where you just learn about what your mind actually is, like what your responses actually are to people, and sometimes, I mean, I was just struck by the fact that you said it was surprising. You weren't expecting to encounter that, and that's understandable. And I think that's quite often. Often I've had that experience with the Metta Bhavana, that I've actually encountered something that I wasn't expecting at all, and I've learned something about myself. I've learned something about my mind. I've learned something about my heart, and furthermore, in a way, what the Metta Bhavana does is it kind of creates a momentum where you can learn about yourself in a way that is constructive, because it's based on a kind of kindly awareness that sort of opens things out. Things come when they're ready to come, and you can kind of just have confidence in that. So it sounds really really positive. I was really struck by the fact that you said that you weren't scared, you just sat with it. And I think in a way that's what Metta enables us to do, is to just sit with uncomfortable experiences when they arise, and also to sit with really maybe quite ecstatic experiences when they arise, all kinds of experience. It teaches us, it develops the skill to be with whatever emerges in our life. That's why it's so powerful, I think. Anyway, I just wanted to say that as well.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Kieran, I have a question in mind that relates to letting go ego clinging, but I'm not too sure how to frame it. Hearing talks lately about the Yogacara and the emphasis in the manas, I think, on the separation we experience from the world. Any thoughts? I'm thinking that you're wondering, and you'll have to unmute yourself there, Kieran, if you're happy to talk, that you're wondering, how can we let go of ego clinging, and can the teaching on the manas help us with this? Would that be correct?
That might be it, Jyotika, yeah. Hearing the talks lately, it's brought up a quote by Milarepa, I think, and this is in the tale of the Red Rock Jewel Valley, and he's saying, what's the point of practicing the Dharma if one doesn't let go of ego clinging? And that's kind of been floating around my head the last few days, but I haven't really connected the thoughts in a way, so I'm a bit confused about it. But that might be what you were getting at there, Jyotika.
Yeah. So is it that you're curious about how to let go of ego clinging?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm probably disappoint you, but I just think the things that Jnanadhara was talking about earlier was so pertinent to this, because another great gift of the Metta Bhavana practice is that we're actively loosening and letting go of ego clinging, because we're moving beyond very consciously our own sphere of interest, which is, in the language we were talking about earlier, atma, sneha, self-cherishing, self-infatuation, to broaden that out and start to bring other people in, and wishing them well, in the same way that we wish ourselves well. There is that story of somebody traveled to see Bhante Sangharajita, the founder of Triratna, and I think they had come from Holland somewhere, and they had a meeting with him and asked, how do I make spiritual progress? I can't remember quite the details of it, but he said, just act less selfishly. So it's one of also the beauties of the Dharma is that it can be just so simple and pithy and straightforward, and I think ego clinging and the letting go of ego clinging, that can seem in a way so daunting and so tricky and slippery and complex, and it can be, but it can come back quite simply to doing something, doing the metta bhavana, for example, regularly. And you can bring in other things, you can bring in ethics, practicing generosity in particular. That's a particularly strong lever in letting go, or softening, easing out ego clinging. But the basics that we're practicing are all geared towards this fairly elevated ideal of completely transcending and letting go ego clinging. Sorry if that's not.
No, that's great, Jyotika. Yeah.
Jnanadhara?
Yeah, sometimes I think, talk about sort of, you can get philosophical in Buddhism, and that can be really useful, but it's almost as if your attitude of mind is kind of hard, I think those ideas, they'll never kind of take root. It's like you need, like, in a way, ideally what happens is your attitude is so outward going that what happens is that those ideas that you hear about impermanence or not self, or going beyond ego clinging, they start to make sense kind of as an attitude, not just as an idea. And I think, again, that's what the metta bhavana does, is it enables us to create a kind of an emotional equivalent to the idea of going beyond ego clinging. I mean, metta is what that actually is in terms of a volition and attitude. And until the attitude is there, the idea will just remain that. It'll just remain an idea. But if you've got both running together, if you've got the idea and the attitude, then real transformation and real insight can take place. And we have to work on both. And that's why, as Jyotika was saying, generosity is just so important. I think most of us we just need to think about, what can I do to help other people? And in a way, you can even think about, you can turn it around. Your whole attitude to practicing the Dharma is that, this is what the Bodhisattva path is about, is, well, you think about doing it for others. So you're doing the metta bhavana so that you'll be more beneficial to other people. So rather than thinking, if I do the metta bhavana, I'll be happier, you will be. But if you think about doing the metta bhavana to enable you to be of more benefit to other people, that will open up a whole other perspective on the practice. And to the point where, the Bodhisattva path is emphasizing the aspect of Buddhism, which is, genuinely living for others. It's really, really lofty ideal, but going beyond ego clinging is a really, really lofty ideal, So, I just wanted to sort of say that as well. So,
thanks, Jnanadhara.
Yeah.
Just one thing to add is I think another thing that has come to me is becoming conscious about developing or creating or deepening an altruistic dimension to your life, and really surrendering to that. So in whatever that might look like, but really giving yourself to that altruistic activity, however big or however small that is in your life, but making that, being really, really committed to it. And you do it when you feel like it, and you do it when you don't feel like it. You just do it. You kind of surrender to it. Yeah, working in some way for the good of others or the good of the world. Yeah, that's final thought. Okay, we'll take one final one. Well, it's kind of handy because there is only one left, and then we're going to meditate for the last few moments. So I'm going to pronounce this incorrectly, I am sure. Ledis. Anyway, you can correct me when I finish. So I was left with a doubt this morning. I was confused between dukkha and vedana. From other talks, I understood that dukkha would manifest in the body and tightness, etc. Is it right to think that vedana is how dukkha manifests in the body, or is vedana just bodily feelings? Okay, so kind of technical terms and query here. So for those of you who don't know, dukkha is translated variously as not quite all rightness, dissatisfaction, suffering. Okay, these are the often the terms and words that are used to translate dukkha. So Vedana is just bodily feelings. And they may be pleasant, and they may be unpleasant, and they may be neutral. Okay, so that's just Vedana on that level. It's feelings, bodily feelings that are pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And then dukkha is would be Vedana that we don't like. Vedana that we find that is unpleasant and we don't like. That is, we're heading then into dukkha. Okay. Ladis, would you like to say anything?
Hi. Yeah. Okay. So, suppose that makes sense. I have to think about it now.
Yeah, you're still a bit confused?
No, it was just in the terms that it was explained this morning. So you're saying there that then dukkha are like vedanas that we don't like. So no, I suppose like I understood by dukkha it was just more than just that.
Well, it can be. Dukkha can be. Dukkha can be all sorts of. There's all sorts of different types of dukkha. There's dukkha based on Vedana. There's dukkha based on the emotional experience we're having, on psychological experience, existential experience that we're having.
So, but you will always find it in the body somehow, like I don't know, like a sadness around the heart, or like tightness around your belly, or something like that.
Well, you could technically, yes, but the more reified far reaches of dukkha in terms of, say, existential dukkha, sense of meaninglessness, say, if you have that experience, it can be hard to locate that in the body. Okay, and emotion on the dukkha, and in terms of emotions, can be a lot easier. If you've got sadness, often that's within the heart, and you can feel that in the body. But things like feeling of meaninglessness, it can be hard to locate that in the body. It is said, though, that all experience is ultimately embodied, either in the physical body or the subtle energetic body. And when we really deepen into our meditation, and some people can have quite a strong sense of their subtle energetic body.
Yeah, when I think
for
of
most of us, it's not, we won't really experience it embodied in that way.
Yeah. I suppose, but when I think about like existential things, like you're not happy with, like for example, I don't know, you feel like sometimes I felt like I don't know, not have a purpose or meaningless or something like that, and you think of it and you just try to meditate on it or something. I always feel like like a deep like I don't know like sort of sadness around the chest, around my heart.
Great,
So
great.
yeah.
Yeah, great. And that might be the root of it for you. That might be the root of it for you. Yeah. And I would say I would that I would recommend that you keep and you work to keep your experience grounded as much as you can in your physical experience, and you use the practices to aid that and to help that.
Thank you.
Partly because we're just so caught up in our thoughts and we proliferate madly, particularly around dukkha, particularly around when we're not having a good time or we're not that happy, we're struggling with something. Whatever reason, the human tendency, very strong tendency, is to go into thinking and problem solving in our thinking and rumination. And the best thing to do is to come back into our physical experience out of what's called papancha, proliferation of thought, and come back into our body as much as we can.
Thank you.
Jnanadhara?
I mean, yeah, it's just. I mean, I mean, it's just. I suppose a really simple way of understanding the relationship between dukkha and Vedana is that dukkha is just a particular type of Vedana. You know, you've got pleasant Vedana and unpleasant Vedana. I mean, just that was what immediately struck me. Yeah. So you've got sukha, which is pleasant Vedana, and dukkha, which is unpleasant Vedana. And like Jyotika was saying, it can be just cutting a finger, or it can be a profound sense of dismay at conditioned existence. Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, great. We'll sit then just for the last 5 minutes. If you'd like to get yourself set up, and that will be it for the evening. So I'll lead us in just a short mindfulness meditation. So just allowing our minds to drop into our physical experience, into our body. Feeling the weight of our torso on our sitting bones. Having an awareness of the earth somewhere beneath us, supporting the room that we're in, and the room supporting our posture. Letting the soft parts of the body be soft, or as soft as they can be. And tuning into your breathing. Being aware of the movement the breath creates in the body as the in-breath enters and the out-breath leaves. And noticing how the sensations in this area change as our awareness of it remains on it. So nothing is static in the body. If we can settle into just an awareness of the effect of the in-breath on the body and the out-breath, just noticing how the different sensations change, or awareness of them changes. Okay. For doing the challenge. Yeah, there's plenty of activities coming up. The Buddhist Center. There's another thing actually myself and Rujamuni are teaching. So we're teaching a Introduction to Meditation course on the 9th of February. So if you'd like to do that, please feel free. Or if you know of anybody who you think meditation would benefit, please tell them about it. It's from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, Tuesday evenings, the 9th of February for 5 weeks. I think that's about it. Jnanadhara?
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, just to really do think, like, while you've got the momentum going, do really think about how to keep it. Like Phil was saying earlier, if you don't stay connected, you lose the momentum. So do think about that now, and if you don't keep the momentum going, the momentum will peter out. And I've seen it happen so many times over the years that people really love meditation, they really get a lot out of it, and then they just lose touch with it. It's really sad, actually. It's just sort of unnecessarily tragic. So do, while you're connected with the value of it, actually commit to taking it further, and then that'll carry your momentum forward. So I'd really say that really strongly. You know, you will, the momentum of the challenge will keep you going for a while, But if you don't keep plugged in, then it will eventually peter out. So do keep, do commit to something ongoingly while you're connected with the inspiration. It's really important. Yeah. And just to say as well, I'm not sure if you're going to be around, Jyotika, but if you've got other questions and things, or that you want to talk about something coming out of what we've looked at tonight, I'll be kicking around for another 10 or 15 minutes. So stay on the line, so to speak.